Hello, Malcolm here, and welcome to Quiet Time Coaching, episode 22. And today our title is, It Will Be Worth It, Hold On to Your Ticket. Now, what's a ticket got to do with anything spiritual? I will explain, you'll find out a little bit later. Life isn't always lived in the light, is it? As a Christian, sometimes we find there are periods of darkness in our lives. Perhaps the Christian life has more issues to do with the challenges of darkness than if you're not a Christian. Darkness is part of the Christian life, even though we don't like it, even though it's difficult. And what do we do when the darkness threatens to invade the light? Well, there's some insights I think we can take from the book of Hebrews. I'm studying the book of Hebrews at the moment because we're teaching through it in the Thames Valley Churches of Christ, and you can find all those recordings on the Thames Valley YouTube channel, website, and my own website as well, and my own YouTube channel. But there's some interesting things we see in Hebrews chapter 11 in particular, that great chapter about faith. And you've got all the examples of faith piled up one upon another there, and examples of, if you like, the light, the power of living in the light. You've got Abel and Enoch and Noah and Abraham, Moses and many others. They are all, it says in verse 39, commended for their faith, but none received what had been promised. At least not all of what they were promised. They had a tough time of it. If you look at their lives, a lot of it was being refined in the darkness and the challenges of holding on during the darkness. I mean, it is true that Abraham received his son, Noah saved his family, Daniel shut the mouths of the lions, Rahab was spared her life. That's all true, but what about all the others? As it says in verse 35 to 39, I'll just quote sections from this bit. Some were tortured, refusing to be released so they might gain a better resurrection. Some faced jeers and flogging, even chains and imprisonment. They were put to death by stoning, sawed in two, killed by the sword, went about in sheepskins, goatskins, destitute, persecuted, mistreated. The world was not worthy of them, it says. They wandered in deserts and mountains, living in caves and in holes in the ground. I mean, these were people going through tremendous dark times, sometimes perhaps for the majority of their adult lives. They were commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised, at least not all of what had been promised. How did they hold on? What was their perspective? What did they do when they were in the darkness? The darkness that was perhaps caused them to doubt, gave them a sense of fear and the suffering that was ongoing, the disappointment of believing that one thing was promised and yet something else seemed to be working out. Have you ever felt like that yourself? I know I have. What's God doing in this darkness that I am experiencing? Well, we're going to reflect on two things that I hope may help us with this today. The first is this, that darkness is temporary. Darkness is temporary. It is not permanent. For example, read with me here in Psalm 18, verses 28 and 29. You, Lord, keep my lamp burning. My God turns my darkness into light. With your help, I can advance against a troop. With my God, I can scale a wall. You see that David here does not deny the fact that he's been in the darkness. He turns my darkness into light. So he's in the darkness, or he has been, but he trusts God that the darkness is temporary, not permanent. The darkness will depart and God will help him. Granted, it sometimes feels the darkness is permanent. I dare say it did for David at times, being chased by Saul, hiding in caves. It may have felt like it was going to go on forever, but he trusted God that the light would come, and his experience was, as the years went by, the light did come. We need to hold on to God through the dark times and wait patiently, and I think that's the key word here, patiently for him, by faith, to turn our darkness into light, to take us out of darkness and bring us into the light times, the fun times, the easy times, instead of just those difficult, draining, training times. But the darkness is temporary, it is not permanent. That's our first point. The second thing is this, that the darkness is directional. Darkness is directional. Have a look with me here in Psalm 143, verses 3 to 6. The enemy pursues me. He crushes me to the ground. He makes me dwell in the darkness like those long dead. So my spirit grows faint within me. My heart within me is dismayed. I remember the days of long ago. I meditate on all your works and consider what your hands have done. I spread out my hands to you. I thirst for you like a parched land. Do you see here how when the darkness closes in on the psalmist, he's left with only one direction to go, and that is towards God, because that's the only place where the light is. The only way out of the darkness is to go towards God, to the light. He says he meditates on what God did long ago. He brings those things back to mind. He considers what God's hands have done. He spreads out his hands to God and thirsts for him. So the darkness can be directional. If we want to get out of the darkness, or at least stay faithful during those periods of darkness, we must hold out our hands to God, thirst for him like a dry and parched desert land. And then the darkness being directional will take us closer to God. Darkness can be fabulously helpful to our relationship with God because it reminds us of who we need in the times of darkness, and the fact that God is real and present and with us if we hold out our hands to him, if we turn to him, if we turn even in the darkness towards him, so that he can strengthen us and sustain us in those times of darkness. That's a tremendous promise, a tremendous opportunity that we have even from being in the darkness. So we have two things that we've learned today about the darkness. Firstly, that darkness is temporary, and secondly, that darkness is directional, and that can be so helpful. I read a quote by Corrie ten Boom the other day, and it said this: when a train goes through a tunnel and it gets dark, you don't throw the ticket away and jump off. You sit still and trust the engineer. You sit still and trust the engineer. Isn't that true? You're on a train, you go through a tunnel, it gets dark. You don't throw your ticket away and open the door and jump out. You know that the tunnel is temporary, and you know that it's going in the direction of light. You just need to sit still, be patient, trust the one driving the train that is going in the correct direction, and wait patiently until you reach your destination. And I think that's a lovely image to help us when we're in our times of darkness. The psalmist, many other people in the Bible, the times of those who are commended for their faith, all went through great times of darkness, and so do we, and so will we. Yet, if we remember that the darkness is temporary, and we remember that it's directional to help us to get close to God, those times of darkness can be tremendously helpful to us in refining our faith and making us ready to be God's best instruments we can be for his glory in this world. So, are you going through a tunnel at the moment? Now is not the time to jump off. Now's the time to pray. In fact, all the more. Pray for the patience you need to hold on until you see the light. And also pray for the confidence to approach God even while you are still in the darkness. After all, God understands the darkness. His Son, when he was on the cross, God had the experience of watching his Son die and then darkness coming over all the land. God knows what that feels like, that time of darkness. Don't throw away your ticket. As it says in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 35, do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. Don't throw it away. Hold on to it. Sit still. Be patient. Turn to God, and the light will surely come. So a question at the end here. What helps you when you're in times of darkness? What do the times of darkness do to your relationship with God? How might the darkness be helpful to you in your relationship with him? I would love to know your answers to those questions. Please leave a comment wherever you hear or see this recording so we can learn from one another. We learn best when we learn in community. And please, one last favor, please pass this on to one other person you think might find it helpful. Somebody who might need to understand right now what to do when they're in their time of darkness. So please pass the link on, and then we can spread the word. Well, thank you so much, and I do hope that your quiet times this week, your devotional times with God, whether you feel you're in the darkness or not, that they are wonderfully fulfilling times of closeness to our great God who loves us with a deep, abiding passion. Until the next time, take care, and God bless.